What's up, fam? My name is, Grant Skeldon. I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I am living in Nashville. I just got married about 3 years ago to my wife. I would probably not be married to my wife if it wasn't for Will and Andrea. I remember you guys walked with us in the dating season and the marriage season in my wedding. I also just want to encourage you guys. Man, you guys have like really ministered to me. You guys are like really beautiful people. I was telling him, I was like, man, I feel like I'm getting to worship with there's such purity in that whole worship team, and just how you, the verse that God kept putting before me is really two verses that search my heart and know me. And you guys have some pastors, and just it bleeds into even who y'all are. People are like, search my heart. I want anything that could get it as a stumbling block in the way of me knowing you, God. Like, search it, take it out, and remove it, as well as the verse. God, I always pay attention whenever the Bible says or Jesus says, because it's kind of like, if you do this, I will do this. Like, if my people pray, I will heal the land. I will do this. And there's a verse I just didn't realize until about 2 weeks ago. It says, those who diligently seek me will find me. And I feel like there's just this diligence where it's like worshipful, but also fun. Jason, I just want to shout him out. He also a fun guy. I had pork cutlet, I guess, for the first time yesterday. Jason, what was the name of the place you took me? Where are you in here? I'm forgetting, but in Irvine. It was in Irvine. Okay, yeah. I was like, where are all the really nice trees? I guess you guys got a lot of that here. It was. I don't know what it was. It was cool. It was next to, was it Honey Pig something, and then to the right of Honey Pig. The brand new boba spot. And then I went to the most hipster, like elegant boba Ray, was it called or something? I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting the experience, the immersion experience here, being with you guys. And y'all, I got a question, and then I hopefully got a promise to you guys. And my question is, have you ever felt, or have you ever prayed for, or just wished that you had someone older in your life to just kind of help you along the way? Like, have you ever wished that maybe your parents would just be a little bit more intentional, a little bit more spiritual, a little bit more even emotionally able to connect with your season and just say, hey, let me guide you? Have you ever just felt like, man, I know what I'm called to do, or at least I got it narrowed down. I have the passion and desire to get there. I just don't have anyone here that wants to help. And because I personally think that we don't have a next-gen problem in the church today. I think we have a discipleship problem in the church today. And it requires our hunger. It requires our humility. It requires our honor towards those who are older. But somewhere along the way, and it wasn't like the generation before us fault, but somewhere along the way, generation after generation after generation, we stopped making disciples, and it stopped being normal. And my hope with today's message is, how can I help us normalize discipleship in the church again? If Jesus' last words, which you would think, if you've ever been to someone's deathbed, you've ever been near them, someone who gets that news like, hey, it's not going to be much longer, they'll usually say, spend time with your family, make some of the best memories. And people tend to think very thoroughly of, what words do I want to impart to my family and to my friends, and what do I want to be marked by? And Jesus had this opportunity. His last days with us, he says, go and make disciples. And I just want to get back to when that's a normal thing, because I don't think there's a lack of those who are young and hungry and desire it. And I actually don't think there's even a lot of older people that don't want to give it. I just think we're asking people to do and give something that they never got. But my promise to you today is that I want to help give some direction, some clarity, some steps that can help in a practical way, so in a framework almost, to where it's like I can make a step by this week to get me a little bit closer to a healthier, stronger discipleship relationship. Everyone go with that? Yeah. All right, let's pray. God, thank you for this church. Thank you for just the privilege to see what you're doing in young people today. There's so much negativity. It's a lot of things that people are saying, but I feel like I'm getting to see the opposite narrative. I come in here and see the posture, the excitement, the hunger. Just even that worship team just leading us. I keep thinking of the story of the woman who could be near Jesus with everybody else, and Jesus say, "Who touched me?" And everyone's touching him, but this woman came with expectation, and something happened to her that didn't happen for everybody else. And so we come with expectation right now. We come with hunger, and even if we are lacking that hunger or lacking that faith, or even are walking in shame right now and don't feel like we can even get that in us right now, God, help us with our unbelief, or give us the kind of friends that would break through a roof to get us in front of you in your presence, and you say that you could see their faith. And so we pray for those kind of friendships, those kind of relationships. And I pray for unique favor specifically for this group right here when it comes to older people that want to pour in, even parents that have a shift in their posture and their heart to maybe give something and try to give something that maybe they didn't even receive. And I pray for just favor in their workplace among older people. I pray for something unique that years from now we can make a contribution that moves us closer to discipleship being so normal and changing the trajectory of our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. 1 second. Hold the mic. Okay. Y'all, they're texting me through like the TV. It's great. Just the real quick on that deal that I also sent. These are some of the speakers that are coming. These are some of the leaders, of course, the team that will be there with us. I am not offering this discount to most, but I've heard the prices from LA to anywhere. It's not fun right now, and so that's why we're making it buy one, get one free. But here's a little bit of my story when it comes to discipleship. Is I was 16 years old. I had just got saved by going to church, not for any of the right reasons, but basically I gave my life to Christ because I, probably like you, had this big transition that had happened in my life. Usually it's a hard one where we finally like take our grip off of what we idolize. Because when you're in high school, and even when we get into college, and maybe even now, we tend to find our identity and our worth in something that we're known for, something that we're good at. And for me, it was basketball. How many of y'all thought you were going to be a professional athlete in high school? Like, it's crazy how many people, if you ask in middle school or high school, what are you going to do for a living? Like, how many people think they're going to be a pro athlete? It's like, that's just what they see and watch. So I was one of those people. And all that to say, in 1 week, my girlfriend of 3 years, who was the captain of the hip-hop team, I went to a kind of school that had a hip-hop team, and then I was the basketball guy. It was a little bit of there's not the best neighborhood that my school was in. So her, the captain of the hip-hop team, me, the basketball guy, I always thought it was like a ghetto high school musical in the making. 3 years. Because if we were 3 years together, people start saying, like, you guys are high school sweethearts. You guys are going to get married. And we thought we were going to get married. So I started being known for, like, the boyfriend of the popular guy and her. And then basketball. And then 1 week, I find out this girl has been cheating on me. I don't know if any of you guys, you guys know, like, the first person you really have that connection with, and you, like, for men especially, I'm talking to y'all, where you, like, finally, you kind of let your guard down, you be a little vulnerable, you're like, hey, I like Taylor Swift, actually, but don't tell the boys, like, or like, hey, okay, I'll listen, the Notebook, this is actually a good movie, but again, you start being vulnerable, you're like, I was the first girl I had ever done that with. I was like, man, I can be myself with this girl. And then you get betrayed by someone you trust and you love and you're vulnerable with. It kind of could sometimes harden the heart of a person. You're like, man, I never want to let someone in again like that. And so I find out I get cheated on Monday. Because I just wanted that. I had the idolatry of my image of, I'm seen as the basketball guy. I'm seen as this girl. I was like, let's just say we broke up. It's going to make you look bad to know that you cheated. It's going to make me look bad. All my guys are going to make fun of me. All the school's going to be cruel and ask, oh, my God, they're going to make fun of me. So we're like, let's just not tell anyone. So I've been holding it inside, though. I didn't even tell some of my closest friends. No one knew. Then Wednesday, it kind of just had an outburst. I get into a fight with someone on the basketball team. Right then and there, the coach cuts me off the team. And I felt like this is the worst week of my life. I'm not dating this girl, and people are starting to ask why. Now I'm cut off the basketball team. And now I'm not around my close friends that I kind of thought were my close friends but I found out, maybe you've seen this too, is they weren't really my closest friends. They just were the people that did the same thing as me. And once I didn't do the same thing as them anymore, then they weren't actually my friends anymore. And so I'm searching for the question, who am I? What worth do I have? And I'm a guy that has to, I work hard, that I'm like, man, I got to find my new thing is what I'm striving. I'm starting to feel that. I had a pastor once say, you always want to pay attention to whenever your heart is heavy and your feet are light. It's just like you're running. I'm a heavy heart. My feet are just striving to find that new thing. Or I'm just going one thing to the next. He's like, where you want to be is where your heart is light and your feet are heavy. They're planted. They're rooted. And I could just tell it was the closest season of like the heaviest heart, the lightest feet, just trying to find the new thing. And then I go to church, March 8, 2006. And long story short, I sit in the back row. God does a lot for the people in the back row. He's got a plan for y'all right now. Y'all think y'all like away. No one sits in the front row ever. Like God's right next to you right now. And you guys trying to run, he's there. And so God just was, for the first time during worship, they play a song by a band called Switchfoot. At the time, I did not know, but it was the song, "This is your life, is this who you want to be? This is your life, is this who you want to be?" And it's like, is this everything you imagined it would be? And I'm like, man, the first time ever Christian music speaking to me, where I'm like, this isn't my life. Like, this isn't who I want to be. And no, like, this isn't what I imagined it'd be. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm getting emotional in church. I would make fun of Christians all day. I feel like the weakest people, that they find God that way. I've come to conclusion now. They used to say God is like a crutch, or church is like a crutch for weak people. I'm like, bro, you're belittling God. Like, he's a wheelchair to me. Like, you think he's a crutch, bro. Like, you're not giving him a credit. Like, I can't walk. Like, it's not a little bit of me and some of him. It's like full him to get by. Like, do him justice. Like, you think I'm getting by? No. But I just decided I'd be lying to myself if I didn't feel like the Spirit of God was talking to me that night. And so they get an altar call. I go to the front. And I'll be honest, y'all, for 2 weeks, I didn't tell one single person I gave my life to Christ that night. I was still embarrassed. I was like, I did not come here. I went here for girls because I was now single, and I found God, but no one knew at my school. And so, but I felt a new conviction. Like, I don't know if you guys, when you just feel like your heart's starting to feel and your mind's starting to realize things that you're just not supposed to do. And I used to have no problem with it before. And now I was convicted. And so I just decided I'm either going to have one foot in the world and one foot in the kingdom, and it's going to torture my soul, or I'm going to go all in one or the other. And I just knew, I think I'm going to go all in for the kingdom. And I got a phone call that same day by a pastor, Kevin Batista. He was a youth pastor. This youth ministry, by the way, had like 1,000 plus high school kids. It was a massive youth ministry. Dallas has different numbers. And he just basically heard my story, and he said, hey, I saw you gave your life to Christ. You filled out one of the cards. I saw the school you go to. It's one of the more difficult schools in the whole neighborhood. I've been trying to get to that school more connected, but it's just I've had no success. And he basically said, can I hear your story? And after hearing it, he said, how serious are you going to take your faith? And I told him, I literally just feel like I decided I'm going to try to do this thing. I'm going to tell people. And he said, well, if you want to take it serious, I want to take you under my wing. I want to pour into you, and I want to disciple you. The only thing is this. I ask you, if I'm going to pour into you, you have to try to reach every single kid at your school for Christ. Because that's my one catch. And y'all, it was one of the best things ever, because you have this vertical relationship with God at salvation. And then he talked about imitate me as I imitate Christ. Now I had a vertical relationship to someone older in the faith who said, follow me as I follow him. And then he gave me a horizontal mission. He's like, this isn't supposed to terminate on you, though. It's supposed to pour out into others. And I don't know about y'all, but I've found that most of us get saved when we're young, but almost none of us get discipled when we're young. Many of us don't, and still have never been discipled at all. And so here's what I want to do is I want to not wait until someone asks like that. I'm very lucky. I thought that was normal until I got older and realized, no, this is not the normal story of coming to faith, to get discipled 2 weeks later. But I don't want to wait. And so here's what I want to do is I want to help train you to trick older people into discipling you. I really do. If for the glory of God, like for the kingdom, I want you to like sneak your way into their life. So let's get some practical things out of the way. First, I think that mentorship gets called discipleship a lot, but I think that mentorship is if someone said, come and meet with me. And I think mentorship is one of the most powerful things you can do. Many of you have probably been mentored, but maybe not discipled. And what I would say is mentorship is if you've ever asked someone, hey, can we talk? Like maybe you just got married and you're like, I need to talk to someone who's been married for a while. Maybe you are about to graduate college and you're feeling that stress or that anxiety when everyone's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And you're like, try to pay off debt. That's what I'm trying to do. But you're like worried of what's next and you want to ask someone, hey, could you help me on the next step? There's always someone who's a little ahead of you and you can get insight and it can change how you see God. It could change how you see marriage. It could change how you see yourself, how you see relationships, how you approach a certain topic. And that's super helpful. But Jesus didn't say to the disciples, hey, come and meet with me. He said, come and follow me. And so don't hear that I'm saying one is bad and one is good. I'm saying one is really good and one is just more robust. I've had my life changed, the trajectory of my life changed by just even sometimes one meeting with someone, let alone a couple meetings with someone where they help me approach something in life differently. But the difference is discipleship means you got to include someone in your world. I've kind of narrowed it to 4 areas that if I'm trying to trick someone into discipling me, like I have these 4 areas that I'm saying, hey, can I come into your life into one of these areas? Can I just join you sometimes? It might be in the easiest place to start is their personal life. What is it they like to do, and how can I join that? To be a student of what do they like to do and go in. The second one is their family life. For me, why Kevin Batista discipling me at a young age was so important is because my dad is not a believer. And I would say my dad is a provider, but he's not the most spiritually or intentionally present person. And he definitely didn't get that from his dad at all. He got the exact opposite. And so to have a man who let me see what he's like with his family, with his kids, with his wife, just even following him, like even not a perfect marriage, not a perfect father, but trying to submit that daily to God and to be a better dad than what he received. You know, they say discipleship is caught more than it's taught. It's like what Jesus did, you know, he didn't preach a lot of sermons to them. He had a lot of conversations with them. He said he just did a lot of experiences with them. And we make our sermons off of his conversations, and we preach them like sermons. But what Jesus did was like a lot of mental notes that were taken from the disciples where they got to ask the age-old question, what would Jesus do? Really, what did Jesus do? Well, I would say they became prayer warriors later in the church in Acts when they weren't with him, because I think they asked, we don't have him anymore. What did Jesus do? Jesus never got to see them be prayer warriors. Like, even to encourage you, if you feel like, man, discipleship is so hard, it is hard. It's like when pastors try to ask me, well, how do we reach the next generation? I'm like, disciple them. Like, this is really difficult. I'm like, it's like if I asked you, how do I parent my kids? There's no silver bullet. It's the hard work and it's the worthy work of discipleship. It just is what it takes. But Jesus never saw that. They literally fell asleep on the last days. They once tried to cast a demon out, and he's like, you guys don't know how to do this without prayer. The one time they prayed, they asked for God to send fire from heaven. Like, that was one of their prayer requests. Jesus called them Satan. Like, there's a lot. They didn't do the best, but then you see in Acts, they get beaten once. Beaten and told, do not preach the gospel anymore. And they do not pray for a hedge of protection. They pray for more boldness. Not a hedge of protection like we may do. It's, God, give me the boldness because I'm probably going to get beaten again because I'm not leaving this faith. There are contributions you will make through discipleship. There are things that people did for you and they never got to see the fruit of it. I would also say, if you know who that person is right now, maybe text them today and thank them. Say, I've never told you, but when you did this or when you said this, I know my heart didn't hear it and my mind didn't hear it at the time, but it made a mark on me. It was caught. The third is church life. Get involved in the church. Follow someone who's plugged in the church. Volunteer with someone. There's so much we can learn today in a world where college doesn't always promise the same thing it used to promise 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But discipleship, man, I feel like that's the secret sauce of the church right now. You got a fatherless generation, and you got better guarantee of going into debt than getting a degree in college right now. But you could follow someone older. Sorry, I'm not trying. I keep pointing at that. I successfully dropped out of college 3 times. That's a different sermon, and I keep putting it before y'all. The fourth one is work life. This is huge. Again, college. There's some things you could go to college, like how to learn to be a photographer. That thing is changing. Anything with tech, anything with social media. Like, if any college is trying to teach how to be a marketer, that thing's going to change in like 2 years. But go and join a photographer, like, hey, I'll second shoot with you. I'll shadow you. That's like, I want to be a shadow of someone who's doing what I feel called to do. I promise you'll learn in 2 weeks more than you can learn in 2 months. Just by seeing what's working right now, you're one of the best, or you're pretty good. You're definitely ahead of me, which is important because I define discipleship as frequently following someone who is spiritually a couple steps ahead. This is important because, mentorship, most of us will say, especially older people, this is one of the things that they're not going to feel like they have time. But I'll get into this in a second. Last thing I'm going to say, and this is to help you guys understand the power of what you bring to the church and to take the weight off of the staff or the leadership team. Because at some point we made church where it's like, these are our leaders and we just show up, and the church loses a lot of power when we do that. What happens is then Sundays, a lot of churches that gather thousands of people. Like, I'm from Dallas, Texas, where there's 4,800 churches. Just to get an idea, yeah, Eniola, we're from there. Did you know, I did the math on a calculator and found out that you could, in order, if I wanted, because I loved the church and I wanted to see the diversity of Dallas, I was like, if I wanted to visit every church in Dallas for the rest of my life and go and visit a different one, it would take me 92 years to visit all the churches in Dallas. And here's what's interesting is some of those churches are like, there's several that are 20,000, 30,000. But I found that Dallas has all these people coming to church on a Sunday, but I'm like, shouldn't Dallas then look different than every other city in the rest of the world? Because it's got some of the most churches and the biggest churches in the nation and in the world. But I feel like human trafficking, I feel like poverty, I feel like education, race, all these challenges aren't that different. And in fact, sometimes they are in the leading 10 cities. So it's not enough to just come. I feel like we're sometimes so bored with church. And I would say, no, show me someone who's bored with church. I'll show you someone who's probably not making disciples. Because that's a hard, fun, interesting. It's unpredictable, but it's not anything but boring. And it's one of the most sanctifying things. They say that, I heard that marriage is a left lane to sanctification. Matt Chandler said that. Even y'all have kids, I don't know what that is. That's like a rocket ship to sanctification. And discipleship is somewhere in there. There's something, I'll be honest with you, like the first time I discipled someone, I was 19 years old, so it was 3 years later, this kid asked me in college, and I said no at first because I thought I had to be older to disciple someone. I was like, well, the guy who discipled me was married, had kids. I'm just 3 years older than you. But again, it's frequently following someone who is spiritually a couple steps ahead. The enemy will be telling you, you don't have what it takes to disciple them. You're not qualified. Your life isn't glorious enough. But I don't think that is the right question that the enemy asks. The question is, are you spiritually a couple steps ahead? And the answer is yes, you have something to offer. And when I talk about the church's gathering, sometimes this is the retention rate for learning. Any of you guys that are in the education world, this is what that's from, is just notice that, lectures technically only have a 5% retention rate for like remembering what was actually said. Reading is a 10%, audiovisual is a 20%. So showing some of this is helping 20% chance more that you're going to remember than if I just shared it. Demonstration, 30%. and then it keeps going. Discussion group. Once you start talking in a group, it's even bigger. You practice by doing. Think about when you go on a mission trip. Some of those sermons you've forgotten for years, but you'll never forget a mission trip that you've been on because you're practicing by doing. You're teaching others. You're immediately using what you've been trained. And I have a question for you guys: is where do you think Jesus was most of the time when you read the scriptures, and where do you think the church is today most of the time? Because Jesus seemed to be at that bottom level. And the church, I just want to tell you all right now, the church can mostly only offer, the church staff can mostly only offer the top. The pastors are not the ones, and the leadership team are not the ones to disciple every single person. You are supposed to be discipling. Yeah, I heard Will's sermon last week. He said, we're not called to make disciples, we're called to make disciplers. You are the disciplers. Home Depot used to have a saying where they said, you can fix it, we can help. You fix it, we help. Ephesians 4:1 says we are called to build up the body, you, and equip the saints, you, to do the work of the ministry. You guys do. But when you got a church that thinks, no, Home Depot, you fix it, and we'll pay. It ain't going to work. Like the world, we'll get a lot of people gathering and a lot of the world burning. But if we could take that hand tied behind one back, because only some team is doing it, but not everyone, you start to see, like, we're back in the fight. And we're bringing health and redemption to the world. Just to even prove this in a funny way, I'm definitely, sometimes I think I should have been a stand-up comedian, but I did love God enough to preach. So who's like raise your hand if you've been here the last 4 weeks. Like you've come the last 4 Sundays. Raise your hand high, please. I need this. And then of who's raised their hand, y'all help me that are on the team here. Who's one of the more funny people that has their hand high? Why are y'all raising your hand? Putting your hand down. Who's funny that was here? Who's like one of the funnier people in the leadership team? Kind of like more of a jokester. Okay, Jason's good. Jason's good. Okay, example. Jason, where are you at? You were over here, right? Okay, Jason. What was the sermon about 4 weeks ago? All right. Jason's getting paid to remember that sermon, and he's not remembering that sermon. So I'm all for inviting people to church. I'm all for this, but I'm telling y'all, we are limited without your help. The impact is happening down here. The impact is what you can do in the world. This is a launching pad. It's not the landing spot. It's sending you out. And so, just a couple quick visuals for this. I once met a man who prioritized discipleship, and I knew, this guy in the blazer is a friend of mine. He pastors one of the largest Presbyterian churches in Dallas, and I knew he discipled him. And I asked him, hey, what is this a picture of? Who's the guy on the far right? And he said, oh, you know Brian, who's the guy in the blazer. That's who he disciples. I was like, that's so cool. So would I be right to think that the guy on the left is who discipled you? And he said, it is. And I thought, that is amazing. Like, what is this from? And he said, we decided to go on a retreat because the guy on the far left had never even met Brian, who I discipled, definitely had not met the high school kid. And the guy in the blue shirt, his name is Scott, he said, I had never met the high school kid either. So we all just got to meet each other. But can you imagine being the guy on the far left and really seeing how your fruit has been growing on other people's trees? Because you've poured into generations. If you look at the text over here, it's talking about, this is Paul talking to Timothy. In 2 Timothy 2:2, he says, and what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. That's 4 generations. Paul, what you have heard from me, to Timothy, entrust to faithful men who will teach others 4. What if this could be the new scorecard for Christians? Not to supplant. I think we need to come. I think we need to bring. I think we need to join and serve. I think we need to give. But also we then need to launch and go and make disciples. I see this in, I kind of have some language for this where I would say, and I want you to assess where are you and what could a next step look like. Are you still a learner where you're like, hey, I've been coming to church for many months, maybe years, but technically I'm not pouring into someone else. I've never made that clear commitment to someone younger in the faith. And so I'm still needing to be fed. But I would ask, what if you went to the next step where you are a leader, where you're pouring into someone else? You make that commitment. And some of you will be like, well, I feel like I am a leader. They call me a leader. I manage people. I do all these different things. I speak, or I lead a team, or I do this. I would say maybe you manage people. Maybe you influence people. You can teach people. You can do all that, but there's a difference in the kingdom when it comes to leadership, where it's, are you pouring into someone who's pouring into someone? John Maxwell says a lot of people think that they're leaders, but if you think you're a leader and you look behind you and no one's following you, you're technically just taking a walk. Which I think walking is a healthy practice to do. Like, I think it's good. I think we should be walking people. Like, Jesus walked a lot. So you're like, being like Christ, just who's with you? Who's walking with you, you know? Are you inviting someone in? You become, to me, a disciple maker once you disciple someone who disciples someone. Until then, you are leading someone, which is powerful next move. Then you pour into someone who pours into someone. Fourth is you're a multiplier. That's where that man is. I want to get to heaven and not go before God and say, man, God's like good and faithful servant. You wrote books for me. You spoke to thousands of people. You just never did what I did. Like, Jesus had 5,000 people. That's like the big win in the American church today. This was what changed my priority towards discipleship, because I was chasing just being a speaker, author, pastor type of leader, and I realized that Jesus had 5,000 people and then chunked the deuce to them, got in a boat, and said, I'm going to keep pouring into these 12. Not that that was bad and that this is good, but it's got to say to me that this is more important. And if I don't do this, I shouldn't be doing this. We need you to make disciples. We need you also to get discipled. I don't want you to wait until you get discipled till you disciple, because you can't control who pours into you. You can control more of how you can pour into others. And just like if you are someone who comes from a background where there's no faith, and you are the first Christian, and you feel a weight to change the trajectory of faith in your family, I would say the same way. Let's be a generation that's like, we're not just going to blame the generations before for not discipling us, because they could keep blaming and blaming and blaming. We're going to be a generation that makes a major contribution to normalize discipleship, so that the next generation has more of a discipleship culture where they've gotten wisdom that they didn't earn or deserve, but we gave it because we want them to get further faster. This is a random analogy, but you see this. It helps to have some clarity. Some of you guys are like, what does it mean to be a faithful Christian? And sometimes I feel like we unconsciously say, just keep coming to church, give, serve. But you know who does this really well, and they give a lot of clarity what like the next steps look like? The people who sell knives to you. The people who sell Herbalife. Someone here is that person, and that's fun, you know, because here's what I would say is, I can never knock the hustle of one of those Mary Kay type people. They have a boldness in Mary Kay that's way bolder than what you have in the gospel right now. They be reaching out to friends they haven't talked to on Facebook for 15 years. You would never do that. But here's, I think, partially why. It's because there's clarity. They'll be like, yo, you get this level, but if you can get someone else, then you get to the ruby, and then diamond, and then double diamond. And if you really do good, you get that Cadillac, and you go from ruby, diamond, double diamond, infinity stone, and it just keeps growing, and it's amazing. You just start, and it motivates them. They're like, all right, I'm almost there. I want to get to that place. I want that kind of tenacity in Christians towards discipleship. Whereas, like, I am ready to go to the next step of finding someone to disciple me, and I'm definitely ready to start pouring into someone who could really need me right now. I saw a place where, this is really just, I have no good transition in this. I'm just going to go into this, the stages of, it's stages too, of frogs. You know, comedians, man, they go to random topics. So this is that point where it's like, that had nothing to do, but you know what? This guy's funny enough, I'll listen. I started seeing this where if you didn't learn anything from me, you learned that frogs have eggs, then they have embryo, and then they have tadpole. I feel like the average American knows that. But did you know that there are also tadpoles with 2 legs and tadpoles with 4 legs? Because I did not know that. And then they become a frog. Replication. I feel like the egg stage is like we get saved. If you were to kind of put the Christian walk on top of this frog thing, and I was going somewhere, y'all. We get saved, eggs. Embryo, we join a church. And then tadpole, we maybe give and keep coming back. And we just do that over and over and over again. We never go to the next stage of replication. Like, I'm going to find someone, I'm going to pour into them, I'm going to replicate, they're going to do it, and it's going to keep going. And why I use this frog thing is because there was a lake in the Washington area where it got so toxic and so contaminated that for whatever reason, these frogs could not get past the tadpole stage. And the tadpoles, what was interesting, it wasn't like it just had all these thousands, millions of tadpoles. The tadpoles actually started growing. So that's what I think can happen with us is we stay at that stage, we never replicate, but we keep getting bigger and growing. We've been there and some almost like constipated, big and all this stuff, which can usually tend to lead to judgment, criticism, a lot of like, we're a critic. Have you ever noticed like it should never be that the Christians that stay the longest are also the most critical? But here's what happened with this lake is this is one of the tadpoles, by the way. Notice no one thought that was cute. Everyone's response was not like, and by the way, I know some of y'all might struggle with alcohol. So I'm not going to let y'all stumble, not today. It's Coke. I did not take this picture, by the way. It's not my hand. God has called us to be fishers of men. We fish, he catches. The weight is not on you to catch. Maybe you have tried and you're like, I don't think I have that gift. We are called to fish and he is called to catch. Obedience is our job. Outcomes are his job. I want to give some time at the end of this to give some conversation of what could it look like to seek out a discipleship relationship. And then just quickly in closing, I just want to give some practical tips for those that also are like, okay, you've talked about how to pour into someone. Can you help me if I want to find someone to pour into me? And here's just a couple quick things I would say. One, if you're going to ask someone to disciple you, maybe that's you, I would say, here's like my just quick tips on when you ask someone. One, I always try to start with, hey, God has trusted me with a lot of new things. Which one is going to require that you also are active, you're moving, you're taking on. Hey, like for example, I just started serving Beloved. I just started taking on this new thing. We're launching a new initiative. I just took this job on. I got a promotion, whatever it is. Like, if you ever look at a resume, I'm looking for what have been signs of promotion in your life. Because it's not about you getting promotion. Those are signs that you're hungry, you're faithful. People start entrusting you with things. And so people I found don't really have a lot of time to give. In fact, I always say that mentorship is adding something to your calendar, while discipleship is including someone in your calendar. So you want to really find a way to say like, hey, I know you don't have a lot of time, so I just am sharing though that this is the momentum of what God's doing in my life, and I'd love to get poured into by you. And they basically, here's what I say is, they don't have time, so they want to pour gasoline on a fire. They don't want to start one. So you got to show you have a fire in you through that hunger, through that. There's already some growth. Imagine what would happen if you poured to me. Sometimes I will even say, I'm going to be pouring into someone. So if you have someone you're already pouring into, you can say, as you pour into me, it's also going to pour into someone else. I'm not asking you to do something for me that I'm not doing for someone else. Second is, I usually say, I see in you. These 4 letters are basically like, I see in you. It's interesting is, this is almost like dating a little bit. I know I know I've used a lot of humor, and there is humor to be in it, but I've really thought through, there's not a lot of things in life where you approach someone and put yourself out there to be accepted or rejected. it's one thing to say, do you want to go to a movie tonight? And they're like, no, I don't want to do that with you, but it's just a one-day thing. But to say, would you pour into me? And I remember after Kevin, I asked the guy to do that, and he said, man, I think you're great, but I don't have the time to do it. And I felt so rejected and hurt. I had to regain confidence that no, I'm going to keep trying. Sometimes if you've asked a couple girls out, you get rejected, you're like, forget girls. I don't want to do this anymore anyway. I went through that season for a short time and had to okay, maybe I'm doing this wrong, or I want to make it as easy as possible, seamless as possible, to take out any excuse that they may have, which are often warranted for why they wouldn't. So I would say, this is what I see in you, and this is the momentum, and this is what I see in you. Just like if you were trying to romance someone, you're like, I'm a student of what you do, and I've noticed that you're really good at this. You and your spouse are really good at this. The way I notice you're a little different in this area. I'd love to learn from you. Third is being very clear. Where do you want to grow? If you just say, hey, will you disciple me? That's very robust, sometimes overwhelming. But if you say, I want to learn how to do 1, 2, 3. For example, there's a kid, Will, we know Max Hamilton. It's 15-year-old kid, starting to speak more. This week he asked me, hey, Grant, I'd love to learn how to become a better communicator. He just told me, he actually texted me this morning. He said, I just got asked to speak to my youth group for 3 nights in a row. He's 15. Is there any book you would say I should read, and could I ever go with you? Because he's totally heard this before, and now he's tricking me into discipling him. And I'm like, I like this kind of, I like he's tricking me this way. And I'm like, yeah, let's look at later this year. There's a trip I think you could go with me, and it's going to totally change his world. Not because I'm amazing, but he's just getting access way sooner. But he was clear on what he wants to learn, so I can be clear on where I should bring him into my life. So if you just say, okay, will you pour into me? It might work, but if you say, I'm trying to grow in this area, we're trying to grow in this area, if it's your spouse or whatever it is, that just really helps. Fourth is no additional time needed. This is where I say, hey, I'm not asking you to mentor me. I sometimes will tell someone, who, especially if they're busy, I'll say, I'm not even asking you to meet with me at all. I will move my calendar around yours. The disciples did not make Jesus move his life around them. The disciples moved their life around him. So I tell them, you don't have to meet. I will find the time where I can join you. The other one I do is I like to. I'm cautious of the word. I'm cautious of the word disciple. I might say, will you mentor me? If that might be scary to them. If they like the word discipleship, they use the word discipleship, but I might say, will you pour into me? Can I just learn? Can I get coffee? I might even say as simple as, can I get coffee with you? That's the first step of getting into their life. But be cautious of the word you use. And then join what they like to do. This is secret code is find what they like to do. What do they like to do? Because people like to convert people into the things that they like to do. For example, there is a revival in our nation right now in pickleball. And there's a lot of old people that like to do that right now. I had a guy who I got mentored by who was the architect for Walmart. He did architecture for all the Walmarts. He's third largest architect firm in the nation. He was on the board with Tim Keller. He was on the board with executive producer for the I Can Only Imagine movie and the Jesus Revolution. Busy guy. Very wise guy. He was in Dallas. And I asked him once, because I'm tricking people into discipling me for the glory of God. And I knew that this guy liked to do something. I don't know why anyone likes to do this thing, but it's called jogging. Have you seen that? People do that? No jogger does it and just does it in private. They've got to post about it. They've got to show it. It's just great. I'm like, great. I know this guy's showing me how much he's run, when he's running, all this and that. So I got a meeting with him finally. It kept getting rescheduled because he's a busy person. Then I got a meeting with him, got a little bit of a connection with him. I feel like, okay, I feel good about asking. And I asked, hey, could you ever maybe consider pouring in me? I did some of these, but he's like, man, I'm just too busy. There's no way. And that's when I learned how to okay, I'm an altar where I join you, and I'm going to join what he likes. So later that night, after being rejected, I texted him, and I said, so good being with you. One thing I notice about you is that you really like to run, and that's something I've really been trying to get into. No, I'm not. I'm lying for God, like for the Lord's work, for the generations that will be impacted by his wisdom going to me. And I said, I'm trying to get into jogging. Yeah, I look like I'm trying to get into jogging. No, I don't look like that. He said, all right, that's really great. I respect that. He said, if you're serious about it, meet me tomorrow at 4. And I'm like, God, why do y'all got to do this? Like, no one wants to do it. Like, y'all literally go just to come back. You're not even, and then you're posting about it, and you don't then have to, everything about it is begrudging. Then you're doing it at 4 a.m. And I'm looking at my calendar. I'm like, what? I'm going to say I'm praying or something. Like, I go. So I show up, which it requires you to be faithful, available, teachable. This ain't going to work if you're not faithful, available, teachable. Or what Will said last week, hungry. It's core of it. So I'm like, I got to show up. I just asked him. He asked if I'm serious. So I show up the next day. I know he likes to jog. I want to be there. And notice how he invited me in quickly because of it. And we jog, I'd like to say, was one of the best jogs I ever had. But that guy didn't even show up. About 4:30, I'm still texting him, okay, man, are you coming still? About 5, what's up, man? And I go home. Around 7:30, 8 a.m., I get a text. He said, I am so sorry. When I said 4, I should have clarified 4 p.m. 4 p.m. And I'm like, honestly, y'all, I was like, yes. Because this guy now knows I'm so serious to get time with him. And I'm not the typical young person who says they're going to be there. My yes is yes. My no is no. I will make the time. I'll carve it out. This is a priority. If you're not faithful, if you're not available, if you're not teachable, if you're not hungry, this is not going to work. The rich young ruler could have been the 13th disciple. Jesus did not say to everybody, hey, come and follow me. Often he said, don't go tell anyone, go and sin no more. He rarely said that. But to him, he said, follow me. He said, sell everything you have and follow me. And he wasn't teachable. He wouldn't become available. He wasn't hungry enough, or he didn't trust, hey, his wisdom's better than my wisdom. So we never know what that guy's name is. We know every disciple's name, and I think he could have been the 13th one, but he wasn't teachable. You know who was teachable? Peter, who was a fisherman. I get when you have a poor man asking to sell your stuff, what do you know about this? The fisherman got told, hey, do it on the other side of the boat, and he did do it. So it requires that. But again, this is my hope is that normal discipleship relationship is like what we're known for. And what I want to do is I just want to give you guys a little bit of time to talk to your neighbor, talk to someone with you about this. And like, because it's something to be inspired towards it, even to learn about it, but it's a whole nother thing to start having conversation and thinking through application towards it. And so the band will come up after about maybe 3 to 5 minutes, but I want to give you time to talk to just one-to-one, a neighbor to a neighbor, about these 3 questions of who's pouring into you, who are you pouring into, and especially what could the best next step look like for you to move towards discipleship. I'm going to pray just for 30 seconds, and I want the Holy Spirit to kind of highlight who those people are. And I just want to encourage you guys, like, God wants this to happen. I feel like there's a favor on our generation when we start making steps towards it. You guys have ever, like, made a step of faith and God, like, starts giving all the next steps? I really feel that towards this, because I'm not asking you to do a hard thing that's like, what if you added this? I'm asking you to do the thing that Jesus did, Jesus said to do, and we wouldn't be here if he did not do. We're not here because of the 5,000. We're here because of the 12. And I think that there's going to be a favor on your life, and it's going to really impact the trajectory of your life if you had someone pouring in and you were pouring into someone. And so let me pray and then just talk to your neighbor for a short bit. God, I pray anything that the enemy may try to say to our mind of how we're not good enough, or no one would want to do this for us, or we don't have the time, or we don't have anything to offer, God, I just pray, remove any lie of the enemy. God, I pray that you would highlight who is it that we could pour into, that you would highlight who is it that could pour into us. And God, I pray for immense favor on those relationships. Even even like a type of way for us to see. I've just noticed as I've sometimes pursued relationships, I can just tell you've done something in their heart already. Even with my wife, sometimes you prompt both of us. And when we have that conversation, it's like, hey, I was actually thinking through this myself. You did the same with Peter and Cornelius. At the same time, you spoke to two different people because you wanted them to have a relationship. And I pray that kind of favor. The Ethiopian eunuch, the Bible is a whole bunch of story of you connecting your people for your purposes. And I pray for this group an immense favor. And we get to see you in the details of it, God. So would you highlight who that is and highlight what does the next step look like and give favor to these conversations. In Jesus' name, amen.